Hey everybody, welcome to Trading Capital, and I'm excited to bring you this exclusive analysis on a stock that I've been eyeing up for a long-term investment opportunity. And full disclosure, I've actually started accumulating this specific stock, and the stock that we're talking about is Canopy Growth. CGC is the ticker. And I want to break down this analysis into a couple different sections. I'm going to be doing previous price history on the daily and the weekly chart, and I'm also going to be more of a shorter term time frame. But overall, this stock I do believe is going to be a great opportunity to own. Outlook. So let's jump right into it. Starting off, you'll notice that there's 4 declining periods here, and I've broken this down, this bear cycle, this declining cycle, into 4 sections for very specific reasons. But let's start off with the first one right at the all-time high. So right at the all-time high here on Canopy Growth, which was in February of 2021. So this was still a period where all this artificial stimulus was coming into the system. However, this decline happened roughly over a 60-day period where it declined 50% in price. So almost a percent a day that this declined. Obviously some days are bigger than others, but almost a percent a day. And why I have it from this pivot high to this pivot low, I'm measuring it, is because this was where your biggest bounce was. This was your greatest bounce. And the stock declined 50%, and then it bounced 28%. So it roughly took 60 days to decline, and then it bounced 28%, which is extraordinary. A large bounce if you were able to pick that bottom or average in. And 28% is a really big bounce. Now the second cycle, down cycle, is measuring this period to this period, and that was roughly a 39% decline. And you had only a 25% bounce, but still a substantially big bounce. And you'll notice that the percentage move looks worse on the downside, but when you pick the bottom in a downturn and you see the bounce happen, you make a substantial amount of profit. Now it's very hard to pick the exact bottom. That's why you have to use some basic mathematics and mean reversions and oversold indicators to tell you when you should get into a stock and when you shouldn't. And we'll go over that today nearing the end of this video. Essentially, the third decline we had was a 57% decline from this pivot high to this. Now this was the longest period of decline. It was over, I think, 120 days, so 4 months. And then the bounce that you experienced was a 40% bounce off of this pivot low to this pivot high. That's an incredible swing trade opportunity. And to figure that happened in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days, so basically a week's worth of trading in 40% in 1 week is crazy amount. And then it brings you to our last decline, which was 52% over roughly a 60-day period. Okay? And all these declines are really important. So if you look at it, there's average 50 to 57% decline when you had a significant bounce over 25%. So let's negate this one, because this was your lowest decline and it was also your lowest bounce. So let's just remove this one for now. So if we remove that period and we just focus on the 3, so these 3 were your 50+% declines and then over 28% bounces. Okay, so we're currently at a 52% decline. Now, as the price history shows, we're in for a bounce of minimum 28%. And what's really interesting about this period, this declining period, and this declining period, so the first initial drop and I think the last initial drop, why the time frame is the same, in the sense that this roughly took 60 days to decline, and so did this. So when you have a declining formation that is roughly the same amount on a percentage basis, as well as the same time in length, you can start to use that as a bit of an indicator as to it going to revert back to its price history. And it always has a mean reversion. And we'll throw the moving averages in to make that mean reversion argument a little more solid and clear. So all I'm trying to say here is that every time you experienced roughly 50 to 57% decline, you had a major pop. Boom. So this is why I've started accumulating it. Not only is this stock completely oversold, but it is well in line with those declining periods, and it's had a 52% decline from that pivot high, and I'm expecting a major bounce here in the short term. But even if it doesn't happen in the short term, this is still such a beaten down name that has a proven business model, and with legalization set to happen in the United States, it hasn't been announced yet, but it will happen, I say, within 4 years, and that's going to be amazing. Because this run up here happens solely on the basis of Canadian legalization and it trying to dominate the world. But once the US is on board with legalization, it's off to the races. Now, if we take a look at the longer term time frame on Canopy Growth, so I'm going to take you back to the beginning. So here you had smart money, early adopters piling in. But the real speculation happened roughly here in October of 2017. And the reason I pick this point as the mass speculation is because you had a more than double, close to triple the amount of volume spike as any previous history of this particular stock. So the volume almost tripled in value over this period of time, which is these two impulse moves. And that's kind of where the speculation in cannabis started. And bring it to your attention, the legalization of marijuana in Canada was October 17th, 2018. And what does that match up with? The previous pivot high in 2018. So it's kind of like, buy the rumors, sell the news event. That's kind of what took place here, where legalization came, everyone thought it would fly, but the truth of the matter is the market always foreshadows major big events like this. And it's just so interesting and intriguing that the actual date of cannabis legalization was close to the pivot high in Canopy Growth in 2018, which is pretty incredible. But which brings me back to my attention. This is a significant point here in my opinion, because this is where the speculation started, and we're currently trading below where the speculation started. So for me, now that cannabis is legal, they have a proven business. Weed stores in Canada and all over the world are popping up, even in certain states where they are just state level legalized, not federally. It's going to be an industry that is going to continue expanding, continually growing, and Canopy is pretty much the big cap of the marijuana space. And to mention, they have one of the best partners. You can't forget about who they're partnered with, and that's Constellation Brands. And to me, if I was Constellation Brands and I'm a majority shareholder in this company already, eyeing up these price levels are mouth-watering opportunities. I think we could see Constellation Brands come out with a M&A or a bigger piece of the pie that they want to own Canopy Growth, maybe as a 50-51% majority shareholder. I think they're currently at roughly 12.5% to 15%, and that still constitutes a majority shareholder in the financial world. So there's tons of backdrops that could send the stock flying, and the fact that you've had declines that match up with the previous 4 declines, and then you've had a major bounce, I think we're set for a major bounce. And not only are we coming into some major support levels here, you're now negated pretty much the whole bubble where the speculation started with marijuana being legalized. And any sniff of marijuana being legalized, the stock is going to jump and soar. Now, back to mean reversion and why I think we're going to see an oversold bounce here fairly soon is if we throw on the moving averages, let's just throw on the 50-day, which is this purple line. Okay, every time you had roughly a 20% mean reversion away from the 50-day moving average, you saw a major bounce back to that moving average, which because a stock can only be so oversold in the short term before price heads back or mean reverts. So where are we currently right now? Away from the 50-day moving average, we're about 27%. So we're actually, let's measure, say, this pivot low to the 50. It looks like a greater distance, but on a percentage basis, is it? We shall see. Let's take a look. So I'm just trying to get the exact point. So roughly a 24% decline. Well, I could bring this up a little bit more just so it's accurate. 25% decline there. Let's do another example. So, for instance, 50-day to the pivot low, 20%. So on a historical price basis, we have a mean reversion that is farther away than any point on this chart where we saw a bounce proceed. So even if we went back to this bounce, again, 20%. So the fact that we have oversold conditions, the price should mean revert based off of previous historical patterns, the fact that we've seen a 52% decline, and in every other case, it's maximum been a 57% decline. We're running into some major support zones here, and we're below the speculation period where marijuana started and cannabis started to become this huge speculative investment period. That is some major technical and fundamental backdrops that are going to prove to be, this is going to be a great investment or trade in the short term. And I'm doing it both ways. I'll be trading this stock for a quick bounce. And you have to remember, these bounces happened over roughly a 1-week period. So the bounces happened quick and furiously, but I am prepared to capture them. And now it's very difficult to catch a falling knife. But after trading certain stocks for certain years, you get a good sense of where the price action is going, but you always have to back your thesis up with some mathematics, some technicals, and some fundamentals. You need to have all three dynamics to your investment thesis and why you're going into it. And never, ever put all of your money into one single level on a trade, because it's so difficult to pick the exact bottom. That's why you got to have multiple support levels and technical levels that you can add and increase your exposure to, and only allow yourself to increase to a certain amount of portfolio size. That way you're never ever take on too much risk in one particular sector or stock. On that note, I do think we see a mean reversion back to this 50-day moving average fairly soon. And that would be a substantial gain. That would roughly be more than a 30 to 35% gain. And that is well within the cards in the short term here. I think you have earnings coming up. Earnings have been pricing in some massive downside, but we could be surprised with stronger than expected earnings. Maybe that will be the catalyst that sends the stock soaring. Maybe it'll be a tweet by some senator, or maybe it'll just be some political influence that is recognizing the need to legalize cannabis solely for the tax revenue. There's so many different factors at play, but it is very interesting how things are shaping up. Thank you guys. Enjoy your night.